people kept telling me, oh, you feel worse, but it's because you're getting better. And now I look back and realize that really wasn't true for me. That really wasn't true.
Hey everyone, I'm really excited to be here today with Becky Sharpe. She is joining me in my new recording space. We just moved, first time ever. I have a dedicated YouTube room. Just had to share that. Very exciting for me. And I'm so happy to have Becky here to help me break in this space. She has got an incredible story to share. She's had a really rough journey with LongCovid. She came down with COVID, turned into LongCovid, and for about 3 years was either housebound or bedbound, and just had an incredibly challenging time, and of course tried so many things, doctors, healers, different protocols, everything under the sun. And even though it was not easy to get here, she did eventually find her combination of things that allowed her to fully get past this. So she is here to tell her story of how she got to where she is now, sitting here. She's in Spain right now, but originally from London, UK, joining us from her holiday to tell us about how she navigated to her full recovery. So thank you, Becky, so much for doing this. It's so great to have you here today.
Thank you for having me. It's very exciting.
So how did this start for you?
So it's great. The introduction that you gave was actually totally accurate in that I got COVID and it turned into LongCovid. That's true. But when I look back, I had been suffering with fatigue for nearly 7 years before that. And I didn't put that together with other symptoms that I'd had since I was a teenager. For example, back pain, IBS, joint pains. So I had problems through my whole life that kind of grew and grew and grew, and then crescendoed at the point where I caught COVID. And it was just like, okay, that was the needle. No, that's not the right phrase. There's a phrase saying the final
straw.
thing. Yeah, it was the final straw. Thank you. Not a needle in a haystack. The final straw. Yes. It was the final straw that kind of made me go down. And I'd been having fatigue on and off for years before, but I kept finding ways to kind of get myself back to work or get myself back out there. And this time I just, it went into the really chronic, severe, can't get out of bed, can't lift my arms, can't keep my eyes open, the whole shebang of CFS, ME or LongCovid.
And what was that like for you? Suddenly have your health decline so rapidly and not recover?
I really thought I'd gone mad. I thought this can't be real because the doctors keep saying there's nothing wrong and your blood tests are fine and nothing's showing up. And I kept getting given so much advice. I was already interested in holistic healing. I already was interested in alternative healers. So I went to see people I already knew, like an acupuncturist and cranial sacral therapist and a herbalist. These were people who I really trusted, but they didn't really give great advice and they didn't know what to recommend. It just felt very strange to suddenly not be able to walk, to your kitchen or to cook yourself a meal, or after you've been so independent your whole life and the whole world was in crisis. Everyone was locked down. So it was just a very strange and isolating experience, I think. I mean, I look back now. At the time, I felt very sorry for myself. I sound really calm now, but at the time, I felt terribly sorry for myself. I was very poor me. And I look back and I think, well, people pay to go on health retreats, to be alone and meditate. And, that's basically what I did. I was just alone and meditating the whole time to try to cope. And I look back and realize, well, maybe that's what I needed. To just stop.
In the moment, though, I think it's normal and understandable to have that why me feeling, because you see so many people around you that don't get COVID or do and they recover, or people that maybe seem to be leading far unhealthier lifestyles, but yet they can do so much more than you. And it just, I think it can feel like you've been kidnapped from your life, which can feel extremely unfair and terrifying.
Yes, and I'd already been on kind of lots of different ways of eating to look after my health and juicing. And I was like, how can I be ill? I live on, nature. I live on juice and, vegetables. Like this can't be right. And then, you've got people that, who are walking around with burgers in their mouths and they're fine. They're not ill. It's kind of like, what is happening? So, yeah, you do feel, why me? I think there is an element of that whilst you're in it.
So, when nobody had answers for you, you went to all the people that you trusted. No one really had anything to tell you what to do. Did you think, well, this is it for me? Or where did you go from there?
No, I mean, what I wanted to do was do research, but my brain wouldn't work. So I kept kind of going around in circles, and I had lists and notes and like amazing filing systems of things that I thought were really important. I watched every documentary and it took a few months. It took about 8 months, I think, until I found a doctor who I thought, this person seems to be an expert and I can follow these protocols, and they seem to have the best success rate of what I can find. I saw a lot of people who cost a fortune as well. I thought, well, if they're really expensive, they must be the best, but that is not true. It turns out that is not true. So I started following this protocol, and at this point I felt confident. I felt like I found the person who's the most expert that I can find. This will work. And I just got worse and worse and worse. I just tanked and went downhill. So month after month, I would carry on doing the protocol, because the feedback would be things like, well, maybe you have to go through this phase. You have to go through this healing phase and you'll feel worse, but you'll be better soon. But then I just kept getting worse and worse. It didn't, feeling better bit didn't happen. I stuck to these kind of rigorous protocols for quite a long time, which I regret looking back.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I remember hearing that a lot with my recovery. I don't know how much people talk about it now, but it was sort of the worse you felt, the more it was working. They called it the Herxheimer reaction or a die-off reaction. Like this was just a cleansing thing, and, bacteria and viruses were dying off in you, or whatever it was. It was a chelation or whatever protocol you're going through. I'm like, I feel worse and worse and worse. And it was so confusing. I'm like, am I feeling worse because this isn't working and I'm getting worse? Or am I feeling worse because this is what I have to go through? So I just think it's a really important thing to point out, because I imagine there's a lot of people out there that are confused about that.
Yes, I love that you've remembered the long word. See, my memory is still quite bad, but I'd forgotten that word, Herxheimer reaction, or people say in the CFS community a lot, don't they? Oh, it's a Herx. Everyone abbreviates it. It's so common to be talked about that we call, you're just Herxing, like it's a verb. But now that I look back and I think, when I actually did start getting better and better and better, it felt like I was getting better. And when I was stuck in the kind of dark phase of literally in a dark room and having all my windows blacked out, people kept telling me, oh, you feel worse, but it's because you're getting better. And now I look back and realize that really wasn't true for me. That really wasn't true. So I think this thing where you have to learn to trust your body again, that it will tell you when you're feeling better and that you can trust that, rather than doctors and professionals outside of you saying, oh, you feel worse now, but soon it'll be better. Because, yeah, I think that's very problematic.
What was the protocol, or can you tell us a bit about the protocol that you were doing that wasn't working for you?
Yeah, so I found a doctor who I felt was very qualified and had a lot of supporters, and I followed that protocol religiously for 1.5 to 2 years, and I just got worse and worse and worse on it. But because I was very stubborn and I've considered myself to be a high achiever, I stuck to it. And it was about 30 or 40 capsules a day that my body couldn't even absorb, and more things that you put in drinks and drink throughout the day, and a very harsh restricted diet. So you're almost not allowed to eat any foods. So I started becoming scared of food, and I just kept sticking to it, thinking it must work, it must work, it will work, because I didn't have something else to do yet. And the doctor who gave the protocol kept saying, oh, give it time, you're getting there. And friends would say, oh, you must be getting better. And I'd say, no, I feel worse though. And they'd say, no, you're getting better. I can hear it in your voice, which I was getting worse. But it took quite a long time for me to decide to stop doing such a harsh protocol. And I had to find something new to replace it, I think. And I felt lost without something new to replace it.
It's a tough decision to make. I used to think of the expression, if you're riding a horse and it dies, get off. Like my stubbornness would want me to stick to something and follow it through to the end, not be a quitter and like it was some sort of personality flaw if I abandoned something. But I learned I had to really evaluate things quickly and learn to just let them go if they weren't working. I mean, give them a good shot, but it's easy to get stuck in this. Like,
I think that's exactly right. I was in the high achieving CFS personality type, which I think a lot of us have this similar personality, where I didn't want to give up on my goal. And my goal had been, this protocol will lead to recovery. It's my best shot. I don't want to be the person who gives up. And no matter how hard it was, and it got worse because the more I didn't get better, the doctor would give advice to do more restrictive things, harder things, you know, so then you're blacking out your windows, your life is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, your food choices are getting smaller, your existence is getting smaller, and you're getting more scared because it's not working. So for me, that was, of course, I spiraled downwards. I was more and more afraid and had less and less life. And eventually I decided to stop and do something else.
So where did you go from there?
I wanted a new naturopath. This doctor was also a naturopath. So I wanted a new naturopath, and I knew I needed someone with different opinions to the previous person. I think I tried 2 or 3 different people that didn't work for me. Some people were lovely, but it just, they were quite new to the world. You know, sometimes you find that if people don't have a huge amount of knowledge, because you've been in such a state yourself, you've learned so much. So I found a man who was 80 years old when I found him. He's wonderful. And he knew a lot. And this was very appealing to me, the high level of knowledge. He'd spent his whole life learning about holistic health and working with people. And he started helping me calm down from the fear, because I wasn't well enough to go to see him. I was completely bedbound by this point, and I couldn't go to him. And I said, can you help me remotely, like a lot of these other people have? He said, no, you have to come here. I was like, oh no. And he was a 4-hour journey from my house by car. And I didn't drive. I couldn't get out of bed. And eventually I found a friend who said they would take me when they had time, which took 3 months. They took me 3 months later to his house. And in that 3-month period, he would talk with me on the phone. And he said in one phone, I said, the thing is, I'm afraid I'll die before I get to see you, because I don't see how I can wait that long, because it feels like I'm dying. And he said, if I have to drive down there to London and get you, I will not let you die. I will come and pick you up. I will bring you to my house and I will get you better. And when he said that, I think that was really the beginning of recovering. I started to feel like, oh, okay, now there's one person who's not going to let me die. And he was 80. I was like, okay, this is my naturopath. This is the guy.
Incredible.
So he then did lots of wonderful healing work with me on body systems, which I will talk about. But I think that was the key thing that helped me, that I suddenly realized I wasn't going to die because there was someone who would come and get me if necessary. And I didn't have that before.
So you'd just been terrified, basically.
Yes, but because I had CFS or ME or LongCovid or whatever name we want to give it, because I had that, I didn't feel my feelings. I didn't feel terrified. My body was doing terrified things. I was having a very high heart rate, palpitations, body was vibrating. I was in a terrible state. But if someone had said, are you scared? I would have said, no, I'm fine. Because I didn't really feel it. I felt quite numb to my emotions, which later featured in my healing journey. But at that time, I hadn't realised how important it was for me to have someone help me calm down. Yeah.
It sounds like there were other things from his treatment or his approach to recovery that were helpful as well. What did that look like?
Yeah. So I would definitely recommend him if anyone wants to check him out. He's a little bit older now. But he had this wonderful machine, and I hope that practitioners in other parts of the world also have access to something like this. And it was called, the brand of his machine was called an Asyra, Asyra, Asyra. But it was to scan your body and tell you what you're deficient in and what is happening in the body. And even though I'd been to a lot of doctors and I'd had a lot of blood tests and I'd had stool tests and I'd had all kinds of different tests, nothing gave such brilliant information as this machine. And it was really accurate. So the first time I went, you just hold something in your hands. It's not at all invasive. You hold something in your hands and it reads the vibrations in your body, and it comes up with charts like, you shouldn't really be eating onions for the next couple of weeks. It's really specific. And you're low in vitamin C, or you're low in this. And then he will give advice like, oh, I'd like you to do X, Y, and Z to deal with that. And I wasn't convinced at first. I was like, oh, this is a machine. This is weird. And then after I'd been to see him 3 or 4 times, it was so accurate every time. Like, I ran out of vitamin C and I didn't bother to buy any more. I thought, I'm not spending any more money on this. I'm finished with all these supplements. And when I went to see him, the machine said low in vitamin C. And he said, but that can't be right because you're on the one that I told you to take. And I said, oh no, I ran out 4 weeks ago. I don't want to buy any more supplements. I've had enough. And he said, no, but this is one that you need. Like, just at least take one a day. He was just like, please, just, the machine say. So it was really accurate. And that data also helped me calm down. The thing of calming down was very important for my recovery, because he would give me the printouts and I would have this printout that showed like no cancer cells, no problem with parasites, no problem with this, no problem with that. Oh, maybe avoid olives for a week. So there was nothing wrong. And it was really amazing data.
Yeah, I could see how that would be reassuring. No cancer. Olives might be problematic. Like, okay, I can handle that. I can avoid olives.
But it wasn't for life as well. I'd say, do I have to never have olives again? And he'd go, no, you've probably been eating them a lot. That's why they're showing up. Just don't have loads for a week.
Oh, wow.
So suddenly this person who was really relaxed, and I would go to him regularly with what I had been told by previous healers. And I would say, oh, but I mustn't have gluten, right? And oh, I mustn't have dairy, right? And oh, I mustn't have this, right? And he would tell me about a tribe in Africa that lived entirely on dairy and cattle produce, because that's all they had, and they were all 6'6" strong. And he would say, read these books. There's proof that, there are different ways of living and different diets that won't harm you, and your body will be able to respond. And so he started helping me recover from my fear of food as well, which had developed.
It's a common theme I hear when I talk to people, this combination of removing the fear and then having some sense of control and hope over your recovery. It's really sounds so simple in that it's just mindset. And I'm not saying that those things on their own are necessarily enough, but it's just something I hear over and over and over again from people, that it is kind of a turning point for them.
Yes. And I think the thing about not feeling your own fear is very important, because I was watching a lot of your videos by this point. I'd become a Raelan addict. So I was watching your YouTube channel like every day at this point as well, which did the same thing. It gave me hope and helped me not be living in a state of fear, because I was watching the recovery stories and tips on what to do, and that really helped me. And I think the issue was I still didn't think I was full of fear. I still thought, no, I'm fine. Because I just had spent my whole life not really feeling my feelings, not really having much connection with myself. You know, I wanted to look after my health. I would go to the gym, I would do juicing, I would follow ways of eating that I felt were very healthy. I was trying to look after myself. I thought I was a calm person who didn't have a lot of feelings, which I now find very funny. I don't know if that's common with people with CFS or what you think about that.
I definitely hear that a lot, and I had a similar experience. And it's just that theme of people who really almost obsessively take care of themselves and feel really on top of their lives and seem kind of very put together and like everything is fine. But I know I was very disconnected. I don't think I had barely ever a moment of self-reflection to think about how am I feeling. I realized I've been living in this state of chronic anxiety that I didn't even know existed for a long time. I was just on go mode all the time. Go, 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 go. So yeah, I think it is really common.
Yes. And the joy of feeling, I felt like I was a together person. Like I was proud of myself. Like I don't break down and get emotional when other people do. I thought it was a good thing.
Yeah.
And now, of course, I realize that is a very bad and unnatural thing that is not good for your system. You know, we
Yeah.
need to have feelings. We need to connect to ourselves or it really builds up. And then, yeah, you have to learn.
I remember being in a yoga class and wasn't thinking about anything. I wasn't, nothing was on my mind. The instructor hadn't brought anything up, but all of a sudden I felt myself like getting teary and very emotional and just something about the class and the releasing things. And I just remember thinking, if someone had told me this story, I think in my head I would have been silently a little judgy, like, get yourself together. But I think it's that thing of, I think you bring up a really good point that a part of our idea, those of us that identify with that type A overachiever thing, is that you are very put together, which must mean that you never have emotions, right? You're aiming for this almost perfection, which means never crying, never breaking down, never admitting that you're struggling, that you have anxiety, that you're overwhelmed. So it's a lot of, I think, just pretending it's not there.
And I think it's really interesting because we call it a personality A type, I think, is what you said. But I think
Yeah.
it's also the culture of success. The culture, the Western civilization is saying, you want to be a goal achiever, you want to be a go-getter, don't quit, don't be weak. The whole idea of becoming successful in our culture is about strength and achieving. And then my idea for myself of, oh, I'm just going to burst into tears regularly in front of people. I mean, I would have been horrified at that idea before. And now I do. I will cry if something's beautiful and moves me. And I have to struggle because I still want to apologize. I still want to say to people, oh, sorry, oh, I'm feeling emotion. Sorry. Like, this is so weak. But it's not. It's just human. It's really good to feel feelings.
Yeah, very good point. We chalk it up to almost some sort of personality trait or personality flaw or something we were born with, but most of us were just socialized to behave this way, which is probably why we see so much of it.
Yes.
So it sounds like it was a combination of things that sort of came together to help you get to where you are now. So in addition to, everything that you're doing with this naturopath, or, what else played into your recovery?
Yes, it was a combination of things. I'm going to tell you about the mat. There was a thing called a mat, this PEMF mat. But I would love to say to anyone watching this, please continue viewing because you don't need to get a PEMF mat. That's going to be the ending of the story. But I really believed in this mat. So it's for grounding you and it gives you vibrations like grounding. So I would definitely say to anyone, go just ground yourself. You can lie on the floor. You don't need anything underneath you. You can lie on the floor and imagine the earth beneath you. Even I've done this in a flat that I lived in and it was above a fish and chip shop. So downstairs there was a fish and chip shop and big fats of, fries being fried in oil. And I would lie on the floor in this flat and visualize myself being connected to the earth and the center of the earth. And it worked exactly the same as using this mat that I bought. So I But at the time I believed in it. I bought this PEMF mat. PEMF is, I actually can't remember how to do the explanation. Do you know what it stands for?
I don't, but it's PEMF, correct?
That's right. Yes.
Okay, well, we'll try and get something helpful in the video description if people want to check it out.
So there are mats ranging from about £600 or $600 to £4,000-5,000 or dollars. That's why I'm saying, people, you don't need to buy this. If you can go outside, you're better off lying on the ground in the park. And even if you're inside and you can't go outside, you can just visualize yourself connecting to the earth, and it works the same. As you know, as far as my experiments on myself go, it works the same. But what I did was I lay on this mat several times a day, and I believed that it was restoring me. So that was I did 4 times a day. I did a 20-minute lying down rest, and this was new, and it was nothing to do with pacing. It wasn't if I felt bad or if I was trying to store up energy or in any way. I would just do 4 times a day, 20 minutes, resting with my eyes closed, listening to meditations. So I believe now, looking back, that if I had just done the 4 rests with meditation, I think it would have provided the same beneficial effect as this mat. But I really believed in the mat at the time, so. It feels problematic to be telling people about this thing that I so believed was helping me. And I look back and I'm just so sure nobody needs to spend that money.
I think that's really helpful information. Yeah, I think that's, yeah, because people will be seeing these things and of course they'll come across them too and be like, oh my goodness, I don't have that much money to put on it, but what if it's the key to my healing? And so I think it's really good to put out there. So were there any more pieces with your recovery that helped you?
Yes, I finally gave up on doctors. I had my naturopath helping me, and I decided it would be a good idea to start working with a health coach. So that was very helpful as well. And I worked with someone who I believe you've met on your channel as well, Raelan, Daniel von Loosbrook.
Yes. Yes, I actually hired him briefly as a life coach after I interviewed him. I was so impressed with him. I'm like, you have got such a Zen vibe, I thought. I'm like, whatever you are doing, I need some more of that in my life. I think he's incredible. We can link his info in the video description as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was very helpful as well.
And another key theme, not necessarily Daniel specifically, although people have told me that he's helpful, but working with a health coach. It's something I wish I would have had available. It's incredible. Most of them have been through what we have been through or something similar. So they get it. And it's not necessarily that they're there with the magic formula for you to help you recover, but they can help you navigate that journey in a way that the conventional medical system, for the most part, doesn't seem to be there yet, because they often don't have the understanding that the health coaches do. So I think that's really important.
I think one of the really wonderful things about a health coach as well, it depends what stage you're at. So I had such bad brain fog so often that I needed things explained to me that maybe were obvious, but I needed someone to explain things to me because my brain couldn't grasp them. And that was extremely helpful, to have someone be able to say, well, here's a summary of what this means, and you can choose if you want to go down this path or not. So the thing that I'm thinking of, which was massively helpful for me, was coming to an understanding of TMS. So TMS, I went from like 30% to 80% recovered reading one book on TMS. I mean, it was totally incredible.
I could probably guess which book, but for people watching, which book was that?
It was the Dr. Sarno book, The Mind Body Prescription. But then I read more books as well on TMS. I was like, now I have to read everything because this is incredible. Yeah.
So can you explain a little bit about what TMS is?
Yeah, it's a book by Dr. Sarno, who was a back specialist, and he started noticing in his career in, I think it was the 1970s or the 1980s, that a lot of people who had back problems didn't have structural things showing up in x-rays. And there didn't seem to be any correlation between things showing up in your x-rays and pain. So he started investigating pain. And this book talks about how pain is a mind-body symptom, and that can apply to irritable bowel syndrome, fatigue, any pain in your body, brain fog, allergies, anything can be this mind-body symptom and be connected to a kind of psychological and emotional repression in yourself. And I understand that some people worry that this is sort of invalidating the idea of the disease, of saying, is CFS all in your head? But it's not at all what he's saying. He's saying your whole system works together. And so if things are happening in your mind and your emotions, they're also happening in your body. And when I read his book talking about irritable bowel, back pain, joint pains, brain fog, fatigue, I kind of thought, oh, I've had all these things all along. I didn't realize they were connected to each other. So for me, it was very fast to recover. I went to 80% in about 3 days.
Wow.
It was good.
Incredible. And I know we said we're going to talk a little bit about, what does it mean to be 100% recovered? Because I think that's a tough thing to explain and to navigate, because we expect perfection in our body. And so what does that look like for you?
I think it's the thing that we were both just talking about before. It's about being able to feel your emotions and learn to live in a more gentle and human way. So when I got to 80% recovered, it was just through this understanding of TMS. The next part of the journey was emotional healing, really, mind-body healing, and was about learning to be very kind and gentle to myself, which were not things I had ever wanted to do before. I wanted to go, and achieve. And so becoming 100% recovered was about learning to go more slowly and look after myself and allow time for feelings and experiencing what it means to be human.
So I understand, like a lot of people, now that you've been through this, you are now very passionate and, enjoy working with other people to support them who are facing similar things. So tell us a bit about what you're doing now.
Yeah, so thank you for asking. Something evolved where I was coaching actors before I was really sick with CFS. And so I went back to that after I started recovering. And these beautiful actors were turning up to one-to-one sessions with me, expecting to work on a script. And I would say, how are you? And they say, oh, well, I've got so much anxiety and I'm having palpitations and I don't sleep and I'm so worried. And I'd say, do you want us to do a bit of healing work on this before we do anything on scripts? And they would say yes. So it just started building up that I would do healing sessions with people I was already working with. And then people who knew me, who have ME and CFS, who knew me through Facebook or who I'd met at sort of healing places, started coming to me a little bit as well for sessions. So it's just very slowly started building up organically in a way that is quite amazing, really.
I would say I'm laughing because it's very interesting how you actually went back into what you were doing, coaching that had nothing to do with health, but it's just that different lens you're looking at it through. And now you had this new, really important set of coaching abilities to work with people. That's fascinating. I've never heard anyone explain it happen kind of that organically. I think that's really cool.
It felt quite difficult to ignore. I couldn't really ignore people telling me they had pain and problems and symptoms, because it feels, I think once you've had CFS, I don't know if you agree with this, Raelan, it feels like you can see people might be building up to their own CFS and you hear their symptoms and they're feeling crushed and they're not managing to work out what to do. So it seems wrong to not try and help them.
Well, if people wanted to get in touch with you or learn more about what you're doing or follow you, how could they do that?
So I've just started a new website at, it's my name and the word love, so it's sharplove.com. And Yes, I've just started sharing photos and videos of my own recovery journey and meditations and things that I like to do with coaching clients there.
Amazing. And all of this will be linked in the video description. So if you're watching, please expand that description and take a look to see what Becky has to offer. I'm so grateful for all the people like you out there. I can't believe how much help there is for people now who are facing these sorts of illnesses. It is a really amazing thing. So much gratitude to you, Becky. You explained things so well today. I think there is a wealth of knowledge and insight and everything that you shared today. So I'm really grateful for you taking the time to do this today, and just so happy that you're out there and available for other people who might be looking for the same kind of support. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Raelan. It's been wonderful. Thank you for all your work that you do.
It's absolutely my pleasure. And for people watching, I'll link up. She talked about Daniel Van Loosbroek, the coach that she was working with. I did an incredible interview with him. He has his own amazing recovery story and just a really wonderful guy. So I'll put that up on the screen if you want to check it out. And to those of you watching, as always, whatever you're facing, sending you massive hugs. Keep going. You've totally got this. I'd like to send a shout out specifically to Mary Kay Wisham. Thank you for becoming a channel member. I really appreciate the support. If you're watching and you're not yet a channel member and you'd like to learn more about how you can get access to some extra perks and help continue to make these interviews possible, just click that join button below the video. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got something out of it, and I hope to see you in this next video with Daniel.